This is the Business Experience Show, where we talk to entrepreneurs about the challenges and successes of starting, owning, or operating a business. Hear real-world advice from a think tank of consulting professionals, marketing strategists, and business owners. Our dream team brings real-world experience with a splash of personality, adding an entertaining flavor to business talk. From the multifaceted business wolf in retired attorney sheep's clothing to the digital media and branding brainiac who addresses the world with a twang, and the right-brained marketing hostess who connects all the dots. The hosts of the show are Lisa Caprelli, a business owner, marketing consultant, and motivational coach. She has personally spent over $1 million on radio advertising and is here to share everything that is taught her. Kramer is a retired trial attorney who specialized in corporate partnerships and franchise litigation for 25 years. He has owned numerous businesses, including a celebrity-owned day spa, a casino card game, and a minor league baseball team. Today, he consults with business owners to identify and achieve their specific goals for success. Joining us in the think tank, Cole Smith, an author, consultant, and entrepreneur who works with some of the biggest companies in media and publishing to help strengthen your brand through his company, ELOC Network. And now, the Business Experience Show.
Welcome to the Business Experience Show. I'm your host, Lisa Caprelli. I feel like I have my own secret agent man for the next 60 minutes, and I'll tell you why. Joining us in studio today is special guest Tom Martin of Martin Investigative Services. After serving in undercover law enforcement for several years, Tom traveled worldwide as a supervisory federal agent before entering the business sector as the head of his own private investigative firm. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes, thanks for being here. Share with us about your background.
Well, I started out in 1969. I was very fortunate to be selected as a federal agent with the U.S. Department of Justice. Mm-hmm. And after going to the basic agent school in Washington, D.C., I returned to Los Angeles and became an undercover agent for approximately 3 years in Hawaii, California, Oregon, and Washington. From there, I was fortunate enough to get selected to be in the International Training Division, where I spent the next 2.5 years in an airplane traveling to about 60 foreign countries, teaching law enforcement the different techniques of drugs and how to detect them. My career basically was a fantastic journey, which led me to be supervisor of a group of 45 or 50 agents. I also ran the LA airport. And it all came kind of crashing to an end in 1981 when I had a couple on-job injuries, which resulted in me retiring.
You ran the airport? I want to talk to you about some baggage I lost.
We probably were the ones who were instrumental in losing it for you.
In 1981 is when you went into business for yourself after your injury. How did you decide what business to get in for yourself with your broad background?
Well, if you're a government employee and you get injured on the job, the government's responsibility is that they must rehabilitate you and actually get you an occupation where you're getting a check. So what the government wanted to do in my case was to either have me go back to school to get my doctorate degree or to become a lawyer, or go into teaching, something of that nature. I felt what I knew best was investigations, and that's what I wanted to do. So I actually signed a waiver with the government saying that if I fail, you don't have to worry.
Right, smart.
Which, well, it was smart, but not for the reason that I thought at the time. It was smart because after I did it, I said, man, that was stupid. But it was a very motivating factor after I had signed it off that I can't fail. I cannot fail. Right. So I must succeed at this.
That's great.
And so far, so good, right?
So far, we've been very blessed. I have no complaints, and we're an overnight success after 32 years.
Well, they taught you to be an excellent investigator, but what did that teach you about being a business owner?
Well, it was kind of like the days when I was in the seminary prior to becoming an agent. Believe it or not, I studied to be a priest, and I always thought it was interesting in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles that they give you a world-class education, but they don't teach you how to run a parish.
Right.
They don't teach you how to run a diocese. Same thing in the government. They teach you and give you an education. I think after about 10 years, you can quote, become a world-class investigator. And so, but once again, you better stay in that embryonic state of the government, because once you break out, you're toasted. And that's why there are literally 100,000 private investigators in the United States.
Wow.
There's 1,000 in Orange County, 2,000 in L.A., and 10,000 in California. Now, ask me how many are making a living at it, and we can probably count them on our hands.
Well, it's the same thing in lots of different fields. There are world-class chefs that can't run a restaurant, and there are people
doctors,
that
dentists.
Right. It's the business that we're interested in, and some of the things that you've learned and you've been able to master over the years that we'll be able to talk about this evening.
Well, I've learned that if you build a business, it doesn't mean people are going to come.
Boy, is that out the truth.
And I'm not a big fan of business plans. I've seen, these guys whose shoes I probably couldn't shine, and gals whose shoes I couldn't shine, who are just the most fantastic investigators, can solve crimes that I probably couldn't solve if I had a team of 10. But as far as getting an office, something as simple as that, as getting an employee.
How about getting a customer?
There you go. Even a customer. Or when they do get the customer, they don't know how to treat it. They don't know anything about customer service. They don't give me the money.
That's right.
We'll worry about the thing, and they just don't have any.
I heard your dad was a milkman. Tell us about how that led into your business.
Well, that was pretty good training. My dad was a milkman, and all of us boys in the family grew up on the milk routes, and so we learned early on it was not going to be Martin and Sons milk routes. That's not going to happen because that's too hard of work. So we're going to do something else. And so the one story that I do tell is that one of the days, about 5 o'clock in the morning, a gentleman came up to the truck, and he said, I was about 12 years old, and he said, would you please start serving us milk? Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm sorry, we're book solid. And the next thing I remember, over the back of my head, my dad's hand came and whap, slapped me, and he goes, son, come here. He says, you bring in the business, I'll figure out how to do it.
There you go.
And so I've kind of, in a sense, modeled that. Sometimes we get very, very busy, because the private investigator business, the reason a lot of people fail from a business point of view, tremendous peaks, tremendous valleys. Mm-hmm. One day you can go to Fletcher Jones and buy a Mercedes. The next day you can't afford gas at the 76
take
station.
It back.
You got to take it back. So maybe you want to get a lease car. So.
Well, and do you have just full-time employees, or do you use contract laborers, investigators that you can hire per project?
We do both. We have maybe about 12 to 14 employees that we try to keep busy full-time. We have another 60 independent contractors in Southern California. And then we have a network in the United States of about 660 former agents in pretty much every state and every city that we can rely on. Those are also independent contractors. So if you were to call me up, or a client calls me up and says, hey, I need somebody in Des Moines, Iowa, we'll give you that contact.
Okay, and I've been to your website. It's a very busy website. There's a lot on it. That's good and bad. How involved were you in designing your website?
I was fairly involved in terms of that. It's not the first time that I've heard that comment, and it's probably why you'll be happy to hear, and you don't know this, but in another 2 weeks, our website will completely change. I've heard from people that are very, very smart in this web's design that, content is king, but, too much
is better.
Too much is can.
You want to focus on, my suggestion is focus on your niche, and that's what you'll get more of. I did take a look at your website, and it has many things, so it makes you look very accredited in many areas, which you are. And your website is investigatorconfidential.com for our Angels listeners as well. It has so much. It's a beautiful website. It really is. But if you want to target, like I know before this show we talked about how you want to target corporations, how you can go into corporations and provide services that they may not otherwise know you. How would they go about finding that?
Well, Kramer brings up a good point. I think in business you have to identify who your clients are. So for us, it's corporations, lawyers, insurance companies, and the public. So now when you go to Martin PI, the main website, right. It's pretty voluminous in its content, and sometimes if an attorney's looking to see if we do civil or criminal, it may get involved in insurance stuff. So what we're doing is we're going to have a separate website for each of our clients.
That's an excellent idea.
Creative verticals.
And then
creative
link them
verticals,
back to each other.
That's very good.
Yeah, that's a good.
I'm going to pretend I know what creative verticals are, but go ahead.
Explain that, Cole.
Creative verticals is just taking the corporations and creating a website that talks nothing to corporations. A lot of companies try to do exactly the same thing. They try to cram all the information and all the things that they do, and it makes them, or appears to be, that they're not focused in any one particular thing. So when you focus in a particular area, you're able to really drill down and send that message to that particular market.
Right. I think one of the things in our business, and for me, is to not to have thick skin,
right,
and to be open to people like yourselves who can bring a fresh look to it. And so that's what we're all about. And so when we get the new websites, I'd be more than happy to turn it over and let you guys take a look at it.
Well, a fresh look is important because technology has changed. People are customers or prospective customers are looking for vendors or service providers in ways that are very different. You probably used to advertise in the yellow pages, and the emphasis on that has shifted over the last few years.
For many, I mean, for every business, I would think. I mean, we talk about this. I like talking about it because the internet commercial industry versus traditional TV industry is changing.
Well, I mean, who uses the yellow pages? I just received the yellow page book in front of my door.
Aren't you annoyed that you have to throw it away?
Who's using it?
No, I don't know.
But anyway,
well, let me speak to that, because there are some businesses that still advertise in the yellow pages, and that's their major source of business. I know bankruptcy lawyers that say they don't get referrals by word of mouth because if somebody is contemplating bankruptcy, they don't ask their friends for a referral.
Right.
And so they go to the yellow pages still, and a lot of money is spent in advertising in that way. However, other people shopping for lawyers will ask for a referral.
I've got a couple of comments to that, Kramer, and even to you, Tom. I always come back to this on each show, and I talk about video.
Yeah.
Video is one thing, but I want to mention the referral basis. A lot of attorneys are wondering why their businesses are dropping, or investigations and dropping, or all types of businesses. They're dropping from traditional advertising. And what they're not looking at is if you go in there and type online in the search engines, find out who is on the top in Orange County.
Right.
Those are probably where a lot of your customers are going. You've got to find a way to get there.
Plus, if they're not being found there, people think, oh, well, they must not be good because they're not at the top of the search engine, even though it could be a 25-year experienced person in any industry. If
That's
they
correct.
can't find you, I really think the smart businesses today, with technology changing so fast, it's if you don't keep up with your competition, right?
Yes.
Right.
Well, one big secret that a lot of people are really trying to get a hold of over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been social media.
Yes.
Digital media is the next generation, and that is video. So, Tom, if you don't have video on your website or on YouTube, start thinking about how video is going to be playing an active part in your website.
And Cole, it actually is. Mr. Martin has a lot of video on his website, but my observation, and I guess that's changing, is that if I was looking for a lost relative, you might have search engine words that would get me to your website, but if I got to your website the way it is now, it would look like you do so many things that's not a specialty. If there was a page that was dedicated to that those search engine words captured, I'd be far more impressed and more likely to call you.
He sounds like people in my office.
Well,
I agree 100%, and that's why that is such a specialty item in the United States, where 80% of the public is actually looking for somebody.
Yes.
So within the next 2 weeks, we'll have a website called 888-US Unite. So if you dial 888-US Unite, or you go to that website, that'll be solely what it is. And I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I just think that as a prospective customer, that would be more impressive to me rather than all the other things that you have on the site.
We have lots of good information. We got to take a short break. We're here with Tom Martin, investigatorconfidential.com. What's your other website?
MartinPI.com.
You're listening to Angels Radio, AM 830 KLAA. We'll be right back.
Is your business having a difficult time in today's market? If you offer a great product or service but are struggling with tapping into a solid customer base, perhaps we can help. Or maybe you would just like to cut your losses and walk away. The marketing professionals from the Business Experience Show are considering turnaround opportunities with select businesses. If you feel that you can benefit, please contact us through thebusinessexperienceshow.com or call 949-415-8237. That's 949-415-8237.
Welcome back to The Business Experience Show with Lisa, Kramer, and Cole.
Welcome back to the Business Experience Show. I'm Lisa Caprelli. We have special guest Tom Martin with us. Cole, you had a question for Mr. Martin?
I did. Tom, it's one of those questions where you left the government and you were making very little at the time, and then you went out on your own to start your business. How did you transition out of that income, and if you don't mind sharing what that was, and then trying to create a customer and generate revenues for yourself?
In my corporate office in Newport Beach, there is a teletype hanging there that I received in August of 1969 that says the government is pleased to offer you employment as a special agent GS7. Your report to the U.S. Department of Justice, and your annual salary will be $7,469. Now, quite frankly, at the time, I thought I hit the lottery. And as you progress and go up this pay scale, it increases a little bit. I believe in 1981, I was a GS 14.4, and I was making about, say, $50,000 maybe a year with overtime. And so once you take that skill set and you get some kind of luck in the business world, certainly in the private investigative world, you can certainly do a lot better than that, obviously.
Yeah, would you say your first year was better than that, or about the same? Or
actually, my first year was less than $50,000. Truth be told, can you cut that out? No, it was actually less. And then I think about the second year, we surpassed it. We started getting traction, and then the third year was I got my first employee, which was very scary for me to have my first employee.
Wow.
To bring somebody on and know they have a family and they're counting on you to get the business. And
it's a huge responsibility. I'd like to change gears just a little bit. On your website, there's a fair amount of attention that's brought to corporate services that you offer, and I was intrigued by some of the statements that were made about the corporate theft that's going on and the waste or the shrinkage. Can you speak to that a little bit, the corporate services that you offer?
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up, because most of the public, and I don't want to broad brush, but most of the public, when they talk about a private investigator, they think of somebody, hiding around a corner in a trench coat and a top hat, looking for marital surveillance. And of course, we do that sort of thing, and we provide that service, and we make impacts in people's lives who have cheating spouses. But in the corporate world, the great thing that we can bring because of the talent that our people have, and that is the art of interview and interrogation. In other words, when I left the service and I had my first employee in 83 or 84, I picked somebody who was actually taught interview and interrogation at Justice and at Treasury, because that's the number one thing to have in this business. I don't care if you're great surveillance or you can, do all these other things, but if you can interview and interrogate, then we can go into the corporate arena, where from about 1969 to, say, 2006, theft was about 15% of your employees. In other words, if you have a company with 100 employees, 15 are stealing time, money, or product. Now, in 2006, the third quarter, it dramatically started to increase up to where it is today at 75%. Now, that's not a sales pitch. That's reality. If you ask the top 10 security experts in the United States, what is the amount of theft in corporate America today, because of the entitlement of these employees? They're not getting pay raises, they're not getting vacations, they're not getting retirement. And what happens is they feel they're going to get their pound of flesh.
Right. Well, isn't it part of that a vocabulary term that somebody may go on Facebook during their employ that you could classify as theft? Perhaps it's research, or perhaps that's something that's allowable. Maybe employers have lowered their standards a bit. Also, when I ran my law firm, I expected that there would be some turf. Yeah, that people would take home legal pads and pens, and and people would check their emails, and before email, they would take a recipe and they would photocopy it at the copier, and so there are certain things that running a business, you expect that your employees are going to take advantage of the situation. There's a soda pop machine that people help themselves, and they may bring one home.
Well, here's our thinking. When I was raised as a pup as a federal agent in 1969, if you took a paper clip, that was grounds for getting the electric chair. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we've meddled a little bit over the years, but
that's nice to hear.
But that's the mentality.
And you guys were packing guns at the time, so
and some of us even had bullets. The point is that I feel that if you have 100 employees each stealing a pad, once a week,
right,
that's $1,000.
Right.
That's right.
Okay, so now if you have 100 employees, each stealing a little bit of petty cash, each stealing a little bit of this, or punching time cards for their buddies, or doing all this,
or taking a nap at their desk, or
Yeah.
doing anything that's not productive, and they're and they're drawing their salary and not earning it.
And that's why it's so important for our business to be able to get our message to those corporations.
So at what point would someone call you to say, Tom, we are losing money here, come help us out?
Generally what happens is the president or the CEO of a corporation calls in the CFO and or the vice president of operations, and they say, hey guys, we grossed $7 million last year, but we didn't have any profit.
Okay,
you don't need to be a rocket scientist. Something's wrong. Now, who do you want to do the investigation? Do you want the head of security who's there and probably has no reason to try and get to the bottom of it? Because if he did, he's probably going to lose his job.
Certainly not human resources.
Certainly not human resources, which is what most of the top guys, I'm glad you brought it up, will do. They'll turn to their human resources. So if they know they have an independent agency with no axe to grind. We just come in. We don't want your job, Mr. Security. We're fine with what we got. But just let us get in there. And what happens is, with the skill set of our investigators through the interview and interrogation process, is that it doesn't take but 2-3 hours to get a rat. Once we get a rat, all the rats will start going.
Wait a second. You make it sound like the person that's giving you the information is a bad guy. A rat is, I would think that certain employees that are doing a full day's work for a full day's wage, they're proud of that. And if everyone pulled their weight in the office, the company would be more profitable, and maybe there would be profit sharing, or there would be raises, there'd be money to pay the employees. So. Well,
if you're pulling your weight, but you're also, stealing from the employer's pocketbook, then that's a problem. And pulling your weight just doesn't cut it for us.
But typically the rat is probably somebody that is pulling his or her weight.
Well,
and not happy that other people aren't.
Let me use a better term. Once we interview an employee and we get them to say that they are involved in theft of time, money, or product, then we tell them that probably their job is going to be on the line. Now, we can go to the boss and try to help you because we don't fire and we don't hire. But you need to now tell us a little bit more so that we can see your loyalty. And that's what I mean when we start talking. And they give us the information and who's sleeping with who and who's drinking with us and who's bringing drugs on and who's taking stuff to the swap meets.
How much of this comes from the corporate policy, whether it is or isn't in their corporate policy? And I would think that, having employees, do they know or don't know, or do they tell you they don't have any idea they couldn't do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing we do when we go into a corporation is we ask them for their book, their manual, their personnel stuff, and the human resource people.
That some lawyer or somebody has written, but nobody's read, because every employee has signed off saying they won't use the computer for personal use, but they all do.
Yeah, highly proprietary information that they can't share with anybody else. But the bottom line for us in corporate America, if 75% of your people are stealing, come on. How are you going to make a profit? And there's large corporations that are making. I'll give you an example. In the United States, there are companies that we have been asked to look into. Let's say the largest retailer of home supplies. Okay, you would be astonished to know that if they have 2% loss or less, they don't care. They'll not call Martin Investigative Services because they'll roll with the punches on 2%. Once it gets over 2%, then they
just call that shrinkage.
They call it shrinkage.
Right. Well, how do you monitor the people that work for you?
Well, that was a long pause.
It may be a case where the cobbler, his kids go without shoes. I don't know.
I love that question. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm pretty confident because of the large pool of people. We get 40 or 50 unsolicited resumes a month. So
maybe they dare not even go there.
They don't need to. They're the highest. They're one of the highest paid private investigators in the United States, and there's
and as a business owner, I find that if you're fair across the board, if you're fair and you take care of the people that work for you, it's not a guaranteed recipe. But I know when I was young, and I remember working alongside peers, when I wasn't owning a business or not in management, I used to see people around me taking things, stealing the popcorn, stealing notepads, and I remember just because, I used to keep track of inventory in the office, and then these people are your friends, and I was always like the rat because I always felt if I'm loyal I treated the company as if it was my own. But I used to still see, like you said, theft of time. People clock in for me during lunch, clock me in early, I'm running late. And I used to be like, in my head, I thought as a business owner, like that's a lot of money. So I always knew that one day when I had my own businesses that I was going to have those controls, because you have to go in assuming that you can't trust people.
Well, I mean, if you catch a guy taking a pencil home, do you fire the guy?
Right.
But if you multiply that, and this is personal experience for me with 250 employees, we had $20,000 a month in paper and pencils and things that are disappearing. Now, you're talking about products and other services too, but that adds up. And,
right.
But you can't. You've got to put some sort of training policy in place.
And I'm not sure. I may have missed that. Is the biggest theft the shrinkage or the pens and paper, or is it time? Because I thought time is the one.
I would think time would be.
And how does one police that, really?
You're correct. The biggest increase, and without question, the biggest theft is time. Mm-hmm. And basically, it's really keeping your eye on the ball. And it's constantly starting at the top and making sure that your supervisors and your mid-level management people understand that 1 or 2 hours on 100 employee is 200, and if you take 200 times say 50, you figure out the math. It's you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars, and that comes off the top.
Right. It also depends on the job, the industry. If you have hourly people that are working like at a McDonald's or a fast food place, they're standing there, they're taking orders, they're doing their things. It's very different if you have 100 people that are in cubicles, not necessarily with headsets, but they're doing work and they're on their computers. It probably depends on the industry, the amount of time that.
How do you grade these tech companies that have roller skates in their offices, basketball gyms?
Well, we have a large company here in Orange County that actually has, pool tables and basketball courts, but you see that the way that's managed, it's a tremendous tool for the company, and it's a great motivation for the employees.
Absolutely.
They love it.
We have Thomas Martin with us with Martin Investigative Services. I have a question for you. Give us an example of your many cases where you went into a corporation and you helped the bottom line, you helped the owner. And give us, without saying names, give us an example of the success of that story.
Okay, probably the best one, and the one that comes to mind is let's just take the largest producer of a soda pop.
Okay. And
they have a division in Orange County. And they have approximately 150 employees that are working at that thing. And they came to us a typical scenario. We made X amount of dollars. We have no profit. So we basically took a team of 4 people, and we interviewed people with 2 investigators on each person. And within about 2 days, we discovered that there were 3 supervisors that were actually making arrangements to put an extra pallet onto a truck. And then as that truck was making its delivery, they would drop that one pallet off. And that would happen like 6 times a day, 7 days a week.
So literally the product fell off the truck. I mean, that's that we hear about that.
Did you videotape that?
Oh, we videotaped it. We followed them around. We even followed them from when another truck came and took it to the Orange County swap meet and sold it.
And wow. And then you said the advantage to that, I heard when we talked during the break, is that because of your federal background, that there's also you can also prosecute certain people like that when they did the employer wrong.
We do, and it's a tough problem for us to convince corporate management to do that, because normally the answer is get my money back, get my product back. And I'd say, well, what about let's going down the road of criminal, and we can go to the United States Attorney or the District Attorney, and let's see if we can get them prosecuted, because that sends a really terrific message that if you do this, we're going to hammer you. Now, a lot of companies do. In that case, we had 45 people that went to jail.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but
cool. I mean, I say cool as a business owner because when you work to own a business, the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it, and then for people to take advantage of that, or the people that feel entitled.
Well, Tom just made a great point, and he said you've got to keep your eye on the ball.
I almost honestly, when you start up a company, I think you should put cameras in your business, and it's not that you're. You don't think so? Okay, I disagree.
Tom, what do you think?
How do you get that corporate business?
How do we get our corporate
how
business?
Do you get that? How do you get the soda pop company to call you? How do they know that you're out there?
Well, the vast majority of the time it comes from the labor relations attorney who is who is affiliated with that company, either in-house or outside counsel, or just by the length of time that we've been in business, and we've scored so many bingos for so many corporations that word kind of spreads. So if you're in the soda pop business, that means you can go to 15 or 20 different companies. If you're in the golf club business, that means you can go to a bunch of different causes. So,
Tom, where are you located?
The corporate office is in Newport Beach, and then we have small offices in Mission Viejo, San Diego, and Los Angeles.
Are you U.S. based, national, international?
We do a little bit overseas, not too much, because the restrictions due to licensing and other stuff. We have great contacts in about 60 foreign countries. So if Cole comes to us and says, I got a problem in Hong Kong, then what I'll try to do is hook you up with a world-class investigator there at no charge, and you just work with him.
Right.
But we're hesitant in doing that unless it's somebody that I know can hit the ball out of the park for you.
Right. Okay, that's good.
Tom, tell us about your book and how it has helped you.
I wrote a book a few years ago called If You Only Knew.
Okay.
And I came home one day and told my bride of 40-some years that it was going to be reviewed by the LA Times. I was pretty excited. And she said, what if they give you a bad review? Which, obviously, I didn't think of that part. But it came out fairly well in all the reviews, and we did a nationwide book tour of it. But what I found in doing the book, and it's a simple, straightforward piece, but it gives you credibility in the marketplace.
Right.
It kind of sets you apart from every other private investigator that has not written a book.
Sure, you're an expert if you've written a book.
Well, some people would say that. It's not War and Peace. It's a simple, straightforward book that some chapters can help certain people, and it kind of separates, as I said. And then overseas, in the Asian communities and in Europe, when you just put the book down as your calling card, they may not be able to read it, but they know you have discipline because you wrote a book. And
that's right.
And I close 85% of the deals.
Tom Martin with Martin Investigative Services. Thanks for being with us today. We're going to take a short break. If you'd like more information, you can go to thebusinessexperienceshow.com. We have Mr. Thomas Martin featured there. We'll be right back after this short break. You're listening to Angels Radio, AM 830 KLAA. I'm Lisa Caprelli. We have Cole Smith and Mr. Doc Kramer. We'll be right back.